Hello, and welcome to Timing is Everything, a program of Care Dimensions. My name is Mary Crowe, Director of Professional and Community Education at Care Dimensions. And I'd like to welcome Arthur Skarmeas, Attorney Arthur Skarmeas from Topsfield here with us today, and we're going to talk about advanced directives. Hey, Arthur.
Hey, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so thrilled to have you back on the show. This is an important month, Arthur. It's April. We're talking about National Healthcare Decision Day, which is April 16th, but the whole month is National Healthcare Decision Month. We shouldn't just be doing this now, talking about these things, right?
You have to do it sometime.
Right, but at least there's a focus on this. Such important conversations, important documents, Arthur. So I always love coming together with you so that people can really understand the importance of these. So before we do that, please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an attorney with 40 years experience, I guess now, with an office up in Topsfield, and we focus a lot on estate planning, healthcare proxies, power of attorneys, wills, trusts, anything that you need to plan.
Yeah.
You know, for when you pass, but also for if you have a disability or a sudden illness or have an inability to be able to take care of things for yourself. Try to just get all the plans in place so that everything is easy especially for not so much for you, but for everybody that is helping you.
Yeah.
And everybody that comes after you.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that as we go along, Arthur, because this affects everyone.
Sure.
It's not just for the person, and that's a good thing. We want to take charge of our healthcare wishes, but at the same time, this is a gift that we give everybody that we love.
Well, you want to make sure that first of all, you want the people that you want to be making decisions for you. You want to pick those people. You don't want it to leave it up to somebody having to go over to probate court and getting an appointment as a guardian or a conservator. First of all, you don't want to do that anyway because it's time consuming, it's costly.
Yeah.
There's delays as far as being able to make decisions, and you don't know who's going to do that for you.
Exactly.
So you don't want, and you also don't want to put that burden on the people that your kids or other people that are important to you. You want to have it all kind of set up for when something does happen.
That's right, and that's why I'd like to focus on this so much today, because this is about, we don't want it to be that these people have to make decisions for you. We want them to be your voice when you can't speak for yourself. So as important as these documents that we're going to talk about this morning, we're also going to talk about having the conversation, because that's important too. So let's start with, define advanced directive for us.
So an advanced directive or the category of advanced directive sometimes really involves having a document or documents that will designate, first of all, who's going to make decisions for you in one part of it, in the healthcare area, but also for other things that you do in life, such as financial decisions that have to be made. And also part of that process would be to your wishes relative to what's often referred to as a living will, but really that's kind of like what you want when you get to the end of life time.
Yes.
And so what do you want to be? Do you want to be kept alive? Do you want not to be on machines? What type of care do you want in that particular situation? So it's really, sometimes advanced directive is used to encompass all of those things. But all of it goes back to, again, making decisions and choices now so that everything's in place so that when something happens, if something happens, that there'll be people ready to go and take care of what's needed.
Excellent, excellent. And that's why, as you mentioned, all of them. So like we break this down, this advanced directive, and that's why it's called that, right? We're putting in place in advance what our wishes would be when the day comes that we can't do that for ourselves. So, and these are legal documents: healthcare proxy, durable power of attorney, living will, although living will is not illegal in the state of Massachusetts, but it's an important guideline, right?
Well, yeah, and since you asked about that, I mean, there's not a statute that authorizes a specific living will like there are in most other states.
Yeah.
However, if for example, if you want to simplify it down to what many people do, they just don't want to be kept alive by machines.
Right.
So they don't want to be kept alive. They don't want feeding tubes, respirators. If they get to the point where they are they're in an irreversible coma or considered to be brain dead, and they have no possibility of recovery. If you execute that type of a document, then even though we don't have a specific statute, that is evidence, and the best evidence of what you want, and so generally would be followed. And if somebody tried to, let's say there was a family dispute and somebody wanted to keep a relative alive, and somebody, say mom or dad wouldn't have wanted this, that's going to be the tiebreaker, because that's going to be the person's actual wishes.
Yeah, supportive documentation.
And so if somebody if somebody fought it to the point of going to court, that can be used as evidence as to what the person wanted.
Yeah, which is really important. And we'll also at the end of this talk about the MOLST and the PULSE form, okay? But let's dive into the healthcare proxy first, Arthur, because again, even though everybody 18 and over should have a healthcare proxy in place, there's about a third of the population who do.
Way more don't have one than have one.
Exactly. So talk about the healthcare proxy for us.
So the healthcare proxy it's a very simple document.
Yeah.
It basically is a legal document that appoints the person to make healthcare decisions for you when you are not able to make them for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the ability to make your own decisions, you're always going to make your own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't, though, and you have the healthcare proxy, whoever you list is then going to be the person that can make those decisions for you. Usually you'll have a primary person, and I always suggest to have a backup person.
Absolutely.
In case, let's say that, oftentimes if there are spouses, the one spouse picks the other spouse, and then they'll have somebody else. I always say I deal in a worst case scenario business, because I have to plan for my clients for what if the worst case happened, and most of the time the worst case doesn't happen, but you're in an accident, and both you and your healthcare proxy are both in the hospital, and both unconscious, both unable to act. That's why you have to have a backup.
Sure.
So you always want to have somebody else in there. So if you have that, then if you, and by the way, the healthcare proxy can be a temporary document, or it can sometimes become a permanent document. If you have an accident like we just described, and you're temporarily unable to make decisions, then you have the healthcare proxy to do that. You've had surgery, and you're still on medication, and something has to be decided in that particular moment, you have the healthcare proxy to do that. Of course, it can also become, for people, especially people with advanced dementia or moderate to severe Alzheimer's, it becomes a document that becomes permanent, so that the person can really assist and manage the other person's health care as they go through that transition process. And if you don't have it, then the only option, if you don't have a healthcare proxy and you can't make a decision, the only option is for somebody to go over to probate court and get appointed as a guardian.
Yeah. And
that's not a simple process.
Right.
And it's not like you can't go over there and say, I need to be a guardian because my mom can't make a decision right now. The court's just going to say, okay, fine, here you go. No, you got to go through you have to file the right documents, you have to go through a hearing process.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to always have a lag, and sometimes it can be a longer lag than you want, because probate court is not, they do the best they can, and they do a good job, but they can't respond immediately.
Right.
They have a lot of cases in probate court. And it's costly.
Right.
So, and some people say, well, I'm not worried about it because I know I know that my mom went in and they gave her a healthcare proxy and she filled it out, before she had her surgery. And that's fine. You can do that with the form. But what if you're not able to do that when you go in? What if you're in an accident? What if you have a sudden medical emergency?
Yes.
So, it's really important. The other part of it is that I like to say it bypasses HIPAA. Mm-hmm. So if you're a child and your parent is the person that's being treated and they can't make decisions, but you don't have a healthcare proxy, the medical staff is not empowered to talk to you as the child and give that person the information relative to what's going on. They might tell you a little bit, but they're not supposed to tell you anything because of the privacy laws.
Correct.
If you have the healthcare proxy, you're entitled to all the information.
Yeah.
So you can talk fully and completely with the medical providers and get all the information necessary to make whatever decisions you have to make.
Yep.
So I mean, it's so important really, you probably won't have to use it, or you're definitely very unlikely to use it for a long time, but it's really important to have that.
Yeah. I want to talk about two different things that you brought up. So one is that, people worry because they think they're going to sign this and then they're going to lose control. It's actually just the opposite. You're signing this document, which is the actual healthcare proxy, because people will say, oh, my so-and-so is my healthcare proxy. They're not your proxy. The form is the proxy, and the person is the agent or the alternate. So basically what happens is that does not get activated, like you said, until somebody has been determined to lack capacity. So that's determined by healthcare professionals. So like you said, this could be temporary or permanent depending on what the situation is. So you're not losing control of this. So that, I think, really people need to understand that.
It is, again, the exact opposite of that. Just like you said, you are maintaining control,
Right.
because you're choosing the person that you want to make the decision for you when you're not able to make the decision. If you don't do it, and you're not, as long as you can make your own decision, you're always going to make your own decision.
Right.
If you don't do it, that's if you want to talk about that losing control, you don't have control over who's going to end up making the decisions for
Right.
you, because somebody's going to have to go and get that appointment, and you're not picking that person, and
That's
maybe
right.
maybe you've never talked to that other person about how you want things handled.
Exactly. So that's another piece to the probate piece, right, is timing, time-consuming, costly, and you might not get who you want.
Correct.
So, so again, I just like to emphasize, so the other thing too is that I wanted to expound upon what you brought up in this, is that people just kind of assume, I don't need that, because it will just defer to my family, it will defer to my spouse, it will defer to my grown children. And as you said, that's not what happens here.
No, nobody has the right to make a decision for another person, no matter who it is.
Right.
And the only time that somebody can make a decision for another person is either by that person executing the right documents to authorize that when the time comes,
Yeah.
or by somebody going to probate court and getting appointed so that you have judicial authority to make
Yeah.
decisions for another person. Family relationship of whatever kind, including spouse, does not give somebody the automatic legal right to make decisions for you. Now, can I say that there have been situations in hospitals where there's an emergency where somebody will still talk to a spouse? Sure, it happens.
Right.
But it doesn't have to happen.
Right, exactly.
And it probably shouldn't happen. But
Right.
but the hospital's personnel are trying to do the right thing.
Right.
But it's not supposed to happen. I mean, legally, no. Nobody has the ability to make a decision for somebody else.
Yeah.
Unless appointed.
Yeah.
By you or the court.
And the thing too is that I like people to understand, Arthur, is that this is state to state. This is when you're completing this, you're completing a Massachusetts healthcare proxy form, and this is state to state. So that differs in terms of the state, in terms of that too. Massachusetts is one of those states, right? That it just, again, it's going according to how you described it, and that it doesn't defer to family.
Correct. And so it is. Every state has their own statute.
Yep.
There's a lot of similarities
Yep.
from state to state, but
Yep.
they're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
It is probably important to point out that if you have a Massachusetts healthcare proxy and you happen to be in California and get sick, it still is honored because you're a Mass resident and you executed in Mass. The key is that you executed it in the state that you were residing in at the time that you did it.
Correct.
So it is still, like, if you were in another state and you had a medical emergency, it's still usable.
Yes.
But if you're in a different state, you would use a different. You would follow a different statute.
Right.
If you look at a healthcare proxy, it will reference, for example, Massachusetts state law, the statute, and things like that.
Yeah.
So it is different from state to state.
And people, will say, well, what if I reside in 2 states? Well, but you actually taught me this, Arthur. Residency, you actually can have only residency, right? Because residency is 6 months and a day. So technically, you can only have residency in 1 state, but you may spend a great deal of time in another state.
Right. And so you always want to do the document in the state that you are a legal resident of.
Right.
So even though people have a house in Mass and in Florida, or a Mass in South Carolina, or a Mass in New Hampshire, or Mass in Maine, you are legally a resident of a particular state. Just think about it in terms of voting. You can only vote in 1 state.
Correct. Yeah.
So you want to make sure that any of the documents that you do from any estate planning standpoint are done in the state in which you are an actual resident.
Excellent. You know, the other thing too is I always say to people when I'm out doing education around this is pick your healthcare proxy wisely, your healthcare agent wisely, and choose them with your head and not your heart. And I think because a lot of times people think that it has to be the person that's closest to them, or that they have to live locally, that sort of thing. That's not true either. And sometimes it might not be the person that's so close to you if you feel like they can't honor your wishes in that way. Want to talk a little bit about that?
It's become, because of technology, it's become less important to have somebody, you know, that's lives near you, that's local to you. You know, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, it was more important to have somebody that was always around. Now, that being said, sometimes it is the person that's closest around because they're the most cognizant of a person's health condition and issues. But the key is that, you know, for example, when clients come to the office and they're thinking about who to appoint as and I'm going to take like older people, retirees with adult children, and they're trying to think of who they should choose. And they'll sometimes ask me, well, I should pick, you know, Jim or Jen because they're the oldest, right? And, you know, no. I mean, the answer is you want to pick who's best for the job.
Right.
So, and I would say that for like the healthcare proxy, the power of attorney, the personal rep of the will, a trustee of a trust, you always want to pick the person that you think would be best at that particular job. The healthcare proxy job is really managing healthcare.
Right.
A power of attorney job, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, is a lot of times managing financial stuff and things like that, but it can be other things too. Sometimes the person that's best at the health stuff is not the best person with the financial stuff. You know, you never know. So you should pick who you think would be the best at the particular job, and you should also, and I know you probably asked me about this, you should also talk to them about that.
Right.
Like, you know, this is, first of all, you always want to tell somebody you're appointing them.
Right.
Because they don't have to do it.
Yes.
So if you appoint somebody to be your healthcare proxy and you never tell them, and then something happens, and then they don't want to do it.
Yes.
That doesn't happen often, but they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
So you number one want to tell them, make sure they're okay with it.
Right.
And number two, you probably want to have some discussion with them about, you know, what you want.
Exactly. And that's why, you know.
And by the way, that will help you make the decision as to who it would be.
It certainly does. And having done direct patient care for half of my career, I'll tell you, it happens more than you think, unfortunately. Not a lot, but more than one would hope that it would happen in terms of people don't let somebody know. So the questions are always is, will you serve in this capacity? And do you feel comfortable honoring my wishes? And here they are. Because as I said earlier, as important as the documents are these conversations, we think because somebody's so close to us that they automatically know what we want. Unless they hear the words coming from your mouth, they don't know that all the time. You know, because a lot of times I think it's surprising for people. And I've just seen that over and over again. So we have to have those discussions so that we can make sure we do that. And then it minimizes the stress too, right, Arthur? Because if I know what your wishes are, I'm following through on them rather than making life or death decisions for you.
It helps.
It's
It
different.
helps the appointee.
It sure
does. It helps
does.
them do what needs to be done at any particular time. I mean, sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's just authorizing something.
Yes. Yeah.
But sometimes it can be, you know, choosing between what type of whether to do a procedure or not to do a procedure or something like that. So, but you know, and I think what I get back from clients is that once they really think about it, they usually pretty much it comes to them pretty easily as to who they should pick for the particular jobs.
Yeah.
It gets more difficult if you know, I'm going to stick with like the older people right now. It becomes more difficult if maybe they don't have any kids.
Right.
And then it's even more important to figure out who you want to have, and then even more important to have a discussion with a person about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We could spend this entire time on the healthcare proxy. I always say that because it's that important of a document. And there's just, I think it's so important that people understand this. This is not just for people who are older. It's that anything can happen at any time. 18 and over, you're an adult. We want to have this document in place.
Just to take another second on that, you know, parents are sometimes surprised, and they don't think about it when their kids become 18, that they no longer have the ability to communicate with the child's physicians. And they're so used to doing that. And quite frankly, kids that are 18 are still probably wanting that because they're still not used to taking care of them, and they're kids still.
Right.
But once you're 18, you would have to take legal steps to allow somebody to speak for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's transition over now to the durable power of attorney.
So that's kind of like the sibling of the healthcare proxy, I always say. Healthcare proxy is for healthcare only.
Yep.
The power of attorney is kind of for everything else, pretty much.
Yep.
And that's usually financial. That's because that's the thing that people have to deal with the most.
Yep.
So as simple as banking, or maybe dealing with the retirement account administrators, dealing with financial advisors, but also for things like registering a motor vehicle.
Yep.
Or access to a safety deposit box.
Yep.
Insurance. Really covers anything that you can do when you can't do it. Or also if you're for convenience purposes. So the other main difference besides subject area between the healthcare proxy and the power of attorney is that if you do the power of attorney the way that you probably should most of the time, it's not only usable when you can't, but when you don't want to.
Yes.
And this becomes important for older people as they get either further. And look, there's lots of people now living into their late 80s, early 90s, late 90s.
Yes.
And some of them are totally capable of making decisions, but sometimes they don't want to do stuff.
Sure.
And so I don't want to talk to the financial advisor, you do it, or I don't want to go to the bank, you do it. And so the person the power of attorney person can do all those things for the person that appointed them.
Yeah.
It actually becomes and so, I have clients that are in their 90s, and sometimes they want to do things, and sometimes they don't want to do things, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. They just feel like it some days, and they don't feel like it other days.
Yeah.
And if you have the power of attorney, you can do it. But again, the key is if you don't have a power of attorney and you need something done and you're unable to, so
Yeah.
the key really is when you're unable to,
Yes.
nobody can do anything for you
Right.
until you go over to probate court and get appointed as, and usually in this case it would be a conservator as opposed to a guardian.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you right now, if you don't have a power of attorney and you have a parent that, let's say, has a stroke and is in the hospital, and you need to talk to the financial advisor about something to release money to pay for things, something like that,
Yes.
they're not talking to you.
Right.
They're not talking to you unless you have a power of attorney.
Yes.
Doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
They're following the rules of their company, and
Yep.
all of them have the same rules. You can't, and they have to be very financial, and it's not their fault.
Right.
They have to be. Fraud is a big thing in this
Yeah.
world today.
Yes.
So they're not going to talk to you unless you have a power of attorney. You're
Yeah.
going to have to get them that, and otherwise you're going to have to go to court and get appointed.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I say to clients all the time, the two simplest things that I do are healthcare proxy and power of attorney, but
Yes.
they are very important to have.
Yep.
Maybe you'll never use them. Hopefully you'll never use them,
Yeah.
but you want them in case of an emergency.
Yeah. I also like to make the distinction too, is that, a healthcare proxy doesn't cost a cent. You can fill one out, you can do all of that. It doesn't need to be notarized. Although you're doing these as a package, and which
Yeah.
is a nice thing when you're doing all the forms together, but people can do that. I really advise you, please do not try to fill out a durable power of attorney. Do not go online, grab something. Please go through an attorney who's well-versed in estate planning, elder law, because the things change all the time around this. So I really think it's important that people get that kind of advice, because it's different, right? The minute you sign a healthcare proxy, that does not go into effect. Some of the durable powers, the minute you sign it, it does.
Yeah, you have to, you need to be careful about who you choose, and you need to be, like, again, the healthcare proxy. And I would go back and say this too. I agree with what you say. A power of attorney is something that you shouldn't do on your own.
Right.
If you wanted to do all the things that you want to do, then you shouldn't do it on your own.
Right.
A healthcare proxy, if you go to the hospital and you don't have one, and they have the form, that's fine.
Yep.
100% fine.
Yep.
Because the healthcare proxy is much simpler in what it provides for.
Exactly.
it's better to have it than not have it.
Yep.
But the power of attorney won't. If you go online, you can get something, and it might help you with some things, but it may not help you with other things.
Correct.
And that's
Right.
the big problem. You're not going to know exactly what it's going to do for you.
Yep, people can sit with the attorney and talk it over about their particular situation and what their needs are in that, and then you can really personalize that to what that is for them. So then we talked about the living will. Okay, that's around health care wishes, interventions, that sort of thing, and that is a guideline, but the importance of that. I just want to talk, I know I'm telling you, whenever I talk to you, Arthur, we need a whole other hour, okay? I love talking with you, and it's just, this stuff is important, but we never have enough time.
Just like a to be continued.
Yes, I think we're going to have to, yes. Yes, exactly. We literally have like a minute, but I want to talk just briefly about the MOLST form is a different form. Okay, it's a medical order form. It's not in the category of advanced directives. So people will say to me, do I need a healthcare proxy or a MOLST? Yes, is my answer. And it's not everybody needs a MOLST, but if people have a serious illness or frailty or what have you, and if you're appropriate to have a do not resuscitate conversation, you're appropriate for a MOLST conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I those are documents that I as an attorney legally I don't do those documents because they're not legal documents.
Yep.
Those are documents that you want to do through usually your primary care physician, and those are really like, for example, people will always ask me about the living will, and then does that include a DNR? And I will tell them no, a DNR is something totally different. A living will is something that gives your wishes if you become if you're really at the end of life and you have no possibility of recovering. A DNR is different because that's, do you want to be resuscitated if you go into cardiac arrest?
Yep.
That's a medical determination, and that's something that you need to do, and it can be appropriate for many people, just as the MOLST. Again, it's a document that I don't do, but it's where you're kind of directing medically how you want things to be handled, and it's usually appropriate for people, older people, or people with serious illnesses, serious chronic illnesses, maybe terminal, but not, you're not, there are many terminal diseases now that you can live with for a long period of time.
Right.
But those are decisions that you would want to have with your medical people.
Exactly right.
And to decide what's right for you.
Yep, they're medical orders for life. That's what MOLST is, medical orders for life-sustaining treatment.
And you want that advice from your doctor to help you make those decisions.
Exactly.
Should I have a DNR? Well, let me talk to the doctor about exactly what my condition is and what my quality of life would be if that happened. And that's where you get that advice to help you make those decisions.
Exactly.
But those are not part of what we do. From a estate planning standpoint. Exactly,
and that's what I wanted to make the distinction for people was, and you said it beautifully. It's not something you're really handling, but again, all of these things come together and are an important piece of your plan of care.
Well, people ask me about them all the time, and I basically tell them you need to you need to have a discussion with your doctor about this and see what you want to do.
Exactly. Arthur, thank you so much.
Sure.
I so appreciate you coming on the show as always and just lending your expertise and all. How can people reach you?
They can call my office up in Topsfield, 978-887-0093. You can find me on the web. I'm easy to find.
And we'll also put a graphic up too for people. But thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks.
And thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate it and look forward to having you on other programs.